Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 10 here on the Bet Rivers Sports Network, your favorite Big Ten betting show. I'm your host, Greg Waddell. That's Doug Kezirian. Troy Machir will join us later in the show. And the college football playoff is here. There are three Big Ten teams still fighting it out for college football supremacy. The hoop season rolls along as well. We've got a lot in store for you later in this episode. But first, let me remind you, we've got some amazing promotions for you here at Bet Rivers, beginning with our Bet Rivers football squares. Players who place the same game parlay of at least $10 on NFL or college football games will receive an entry into the weekly squares game. Winning squares can earn up to a $50 bonus bet per entry. You can see the app or the website for more details. Additionally, we have our weekly profit boost pack at Bet Rivers. If you log into your account each Saturday, you receive 2 profit boosts for same game and standard parlays. The profit boosts are dependent on the number of legs included. See the app and the website for more details. All right, let's take a broad look at the college football playoff picture here to open the show. If you are a futures bettor, you certainly can bet those right now. Ohio State is the favorite. Even after losing to Indiana, they hold strong as plus 230 odds to win it all, just like they did last year. Indiana, the now number 1 overall seed, plus 250, just behind the Buckeyes. Oregon, further down the list, is the 4th most likely champion this year at plus 750. Pretty good year for Big Ten football. Got Georgia, Texas Tech, and Texas A&M as other likely champions. Doug, what do you see here as you survey the landscape going into this playoff?
The obviously the Big Ten playoff game for anyone who tuned in last week sort of unfolded like I imagined. I thought Indiana would care a lot more. A little bit of a flat spot for the Buckeyes, just given they had to get over the hump and beat Michigan, what they were targeting for the last year. I think the bracket sort of broke favorably for Ohio State. I really do. I think falling to 2 is the right answer. It's either 2 or 3, right? You're not going to put them to 4 where they could face Indiana again in a rematch before the championship game. But I guess we have 2 rematches in the first round, so who knows? But all in all, I think Georgia's weakness plays to Ohio State fairly well. That they're not great against the pass. They're good against the run. Alabama certainly was reminded of that last Saturday, but the pass is their weakness. Whether it be Alabama in the first meeting or Tennessee, I mean, you can throw on them, and I think Ohio State would be ready if and when they meet down the line in the bracket. But they get the bye, and I don't think they'll have any trouble against Miami or Texas A&M. So I like Ohio State's path. I think they're so balanced. I think they needed a game like they had. We talked about it. They didn't really have close games all year, and it can manifest itself in a weird way, like the kicking game. You can miss a chip shot. Those are nerves the kicker has not felt all season, right? They had not trailed in the second half until this past Saturday evening. So I think it was a great sort of long-term ploy for them. They needed that. Now, Oregon last year had a little bit of a back and forth, or at least had to push forward in the second half of the Big Ten championship game that I thought would make them ready in the playoff. And then the Buckeyes just hit them in the mouth in the Rose Bowl 34-0 lead before they got on the board. So maybe my narrative doesn't work out so well, but I think it's a long-term benefit what happened to the Buckeyes. I'm not ready to bet them at that price because they are the favorite and there'll be opportunities, whether it's in game or some point. But I do think it broke favorably. Obviously, the Hoosiers get a lot of credit. I think they're going to be okay if they face Alabama and Oklahoma. They'll definitely be okay. I don't respect the Sooners' offense at all. I think the Red Raiders could be really tough for Oregon. I'm wondering if the Texas Tech wins this whole thing.
Yeah, I like the Texas Tech shout. I actually am looking at the top part of the bracket for the value bet here, whether that is Texas Tech or Oregon. I think you've got to look in the top half for any sort of long shot value, if you even consider Texas Tech or Oregon a long shot. Oregon about 7-1 right now. Look, I think, and I'll ask you this in a second, how you kind of view if this is a year of parity or if this is a year where you expect one of the elite teams to emerge. But to me, it's a collision of destiny between Georgia and Ohio State in the bottom. To me, that's a toss-up type of game. I do think if you believe the Buckeyes are the best team in football, we would have said they were going into the Indiana game. Getting them at plus 230 is certainly better value than you did before the Indiana game. And, they kind of have a clear path to me. Them versus Georgia, they get through that game, they're in the national championship. But to me, I want no part of the Indiana-Alabama pod. I just don't. I mean, as good as Indiana is and as impressive as they are, if we are playing the motivational game here, I know Cignetti is special. If you bought in that they wanted the Big Ten title a little bit more, I wonder how winning the Big Ten title will affect them now. It's a gradual process to become the new Nick Saban. This is now a great year, regardless of what happens for Indiana. In steps either Oklahoma or Alabama, who are potent teams, depending on how healthy John Machir is and exactly what version of Alabama you get. So, look, I just think that's a little bit of a bad break. If I'm Indiana, I would have rather had Ohio State's draw, catch Miami or Texas A&M, or Georgia's draw for sure, with Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin or Tulane. And then if you get that, you've got Texas Tech, who seems like a buzzsaw waiting for you. You've got an Oregon team that already played you down to the final seconds, albeit in Eugene. So for me, I actually like the value on either Oregon or Texas Tech, whichever team you believe more in to emerge and possibly pick off an Indiana team that, is already feeling accomplished right now. Get a nice ticket with a nice number and then go on. But let me ask you this, Doug. Do you view this season in general as a year where we could see a team outside maybe the top three, put Georgia in with Indiana and Ohio State? Do you think it's realistic a team outside those top three could win the championship this year?
100%, because a lot of things can happen. Now, last year we had a different wrinkle with Arizona State and Boise State getting the bye. But I mean, other teams kind of went far, right? Penn State was knocking on the door, Notre Dame. I mean, those were all short point spreads until the championship game with Ohio State just looked so good. I think all four top seeds can win this. So can Oregon. I don't think after that. So I'd say the top five can win it all. I guess there's always the curveball of Alabama, but I just don't think they are dominant enough that I think they're going to be inconsistent in one of these games where they only play well for 2.5, 3 quarters and it bites them. For them to have to win, honestly, like 4 tough games, I just don't think they'll do it, but I'm not going to bet my life on it. So I'd say 6 teams could win it. I'd say the top 5 seeds and Alabama.
It's a good point on the inconsistency of Alabama. Even if you believe in their ceiling, it's hard to envision that team winning 4 straight.
Right.
I think the more we talk through this, I think Oregon is my play heading into this playoff before any games occur. I do think this is a team that at their best can play to an Indiana and Ohio State level. I like the draw. Obviously, they got to get through Texas Tech, and that is a toss-up game to me. But, they covered 3 straight games at the end of the year very quietly. They did play Indiana all the way down to the final possession. Should they have won the game at home? Maybe. But I think this is the team that's peaking at the right time, and it's only a matter of time before they do get over the hump. You know what? Why don't we get Troy in here real quick? Troy, do you have any added thoughts on the college football playoff before we get into a specific game preview for the Ducks?
Yeah, I'm excited by it, despite maybe some of the discourse early in the week. And specifically, rematches. We see this a lot in the college basketball tournament where you'll get either a rematch or a coach versus a team he used to coach. And I do like that. Even though, I think we want to see teams play different teams. We're getting Tulane Ole Miss again, which is fascinating given that the coaches are no longer there, at least on the Ole Miss side. And it was first game of the season that Tulane played Ole Miss. We have Alabama, Oklahoma, as well as a rematch being played in Norman when the last time they played in Tuscaloosa and Oklahoma won, even though Alabama outgained them by 200 yards. And then the game we will discuss obviously is James Madison, Oregon. I'm fascinated by this game. I'm a little bit intrigued by your play on Oregon because when I'm in the Mid-Atlantic, so I have a lot of friends who've gone to James Madison and been talking about this game a lot this week. And we've covered Oregon a ton this year, and throughout the season, we've questioned Dante Moore, is he an elite quarterback? We've questioned, is Oregon among the elite teams? I think they're a very, very good team. I'm not here to say that James Madison will beat them, but I think this is a team that at 21.5. I'm not super confident that the Ducks will be able to cover. James Madison is a good team. I think this will probably be a 2-score game, or a double-digit game. But I'm less on the Oregon to win it all train because I think even if they beat James Madison, I haven't been super impressed with their ability to really get up and down and score points, which you're going to need to do, especially, if you play Texas Tech next.
Yeah. All right. That's a good segue, Troy. Thank you for taking us in here to James Madison and Oregon. Let's give some early thoughts on this game. As you see, the Ducks are favored by 21.5 at home, total at 50.5. Just for, I guess, I don't know, clerical purposes here, I'm looking at some of the spreads for Oregon this year. They're favored by 18.5 against Rutgers. Now, albeit that was on the road, but I kind of can't believe we're in a college football playoff game catching 21.5 points when that's bigger than quite a few spreads they played in Big Ten play this year. Say what you want. I know that the coaching change is coming and he's still trying to juggle two jobs right now, but this is a team that is in the college football playoff. They're a good football team. I kind of have the same suspicion Troy has here that this number is a little high, even as someone who wants to back the Ducks to maybe make a run to the championship game here. Doug, what do you think of this?
Well, they're only in the playoff because the ACC has stupid rules, and they triple backdoored into this thing because Duke, with 5 losses, won. I mean, they had a shot, albeit early in the season, to beat Louisville, and they did lead, I believe, at halftime by a point, but they lost by 2 touchdowns. And that's sort of how I view this James Madison team. Look, I'm all for pulling for the underdog and all that, and it's just it ain't happening this year. They don't belong in the playoff. That's another story. It's just it makes it really harder with these multiple rounds. Like we saw that with TCU, right? You can sneak an upset against Michigan, and then you get boat raced against Georgia in the national championship game. Not that the 14 playoff was any sort of help to any of the teams because Michigan State didn't score one year. Washington got an opening drive field goal, then shut out. Cincinnati didn't belong on the same field as Bama. So there's a giant drop off with the trenches and things like that. If we were talking about a peak Boise State team that was undefeated, fine. Then I'm all for rooting them home to win the national championship. But right now, this is just window dressing. They're going to get blown out. Now, the question is, will Oregon step on the gas? How much will last year, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. I think they'll be ready to play. The Ducks will. I think last year's experiences really did a good thing for them. But this was a James Madison team that I thought was sort of bigger, better in name. Obviously, Zignetti building the program, Chesney doing well. But you're right, he's got kind of one foot in Westwood right now. Like, we don't really know what to expect from this team. They were supposed to blow out Washington State, didn't happen at home. Coastal changed quarterbacks late in the year. That's why they blew them out. I don't know. I think this could become a 24-point win, 31-point win. But I also, a friend of mine has a model. He has this landing 15 to Troy's point. So I'm not getting involved, but it is Oregon or pass for me.
Yeah, it is a line that almost doesn't pass the smell test for me at 21.5. It's like, it's so big. It's probably a blowout. Like, if it's got my attention.
It's been one-way traffic. Opened around 20, right? 19.5, 20.
Yeah.
And it got to 21, held steady, and now we got the hook on there.
Yeah, I do wonder exactly if it'll even keep going in that direction. I look back a year ago, to your point, the I guess, what do you want to call them? The non-power teams that are in this bracket this year, right? A year ago, we had Boise State, we had SMU. Boise State got a bye. SMU, I think, earned their way in, and both those teams played Penn State. They were in the same pod. I think both those teams are better than JMU and Tulane. I mean, pretty sizably so, in my opinion. And you look at what happened in those games. Again, mind you, now we have context from what happened this year. It was basically the same Penn State team that got James Franklin fired in the playoff last year. And they beat SMU by 28. They beat Boise State by 17. It's a hard sell if that's what happened last year to better versions of the quote-unquote underdog in these games.
If you remember, SMU did a rollout on 4th down, had a wide open touchdown, dropped that. Then there was a stupid play. That game could have been a lot more competitive. So that was frustrating because that was the morning game on Saturday. This is the night game on Saturday, although West Coast time, it's a 4:30 kickoff. But still, Autzen will be rocking. It's a lot to ask for the Dukes. It was a much different role than we just saw them right in their championship game. They were huge favorites of 23.5, 24 points, and we're slow starters, but I'm going to look past this. Playing the underdog is always more fun, and I think you're going to get a good effort out of them. I just wonder, I think Dan Lanning's going to have these guys ready.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't come here and endorse Oregon to win the national championship as one of my favorite bets right now without being confident in the Ducks to get through this first test. So, all right, there you have it. There's our early college football playoff preview. Of course, we're still going to be doing this show in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. 2 episodes every Wednesday and Friday. So as bowl season rolls on, we'll have more coverage of all the Big Ten college football games to get you prepared to get your bet slips in throughout this winter. For now, let's turn our attention to college basketball, where we've got a nice little slate in the middle of this week on Wednesday. First up, we are going to do a quick look at Minnesota and Purdue here. Mackey Arena, the Boilermakers, no longer the number 1 team in the country following that beatdown from the Iowa State Cyclones. You would expect quite the response from Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman, Ren Fletcher Lawyer, and Matt Painter here. 20.5-point favorites, totals at 143. Anything catch your interest, Doug?
Really, we should just skip the Saturday and just bet on Michigan the next time they play because they are just trucking everyone by 40. In terms of this game, I'm torn because I was on Indiana last night to sort of erase the stench of their last game, get back on track, and play bully ball. I have a sharp buddy who says that Purdue's going to do the same and win this by 30, but I'm not so sure. I do think they have the size, and obviously Braden Smith pulls the strings, but I think Minnesota is pretty competent and much more than Penn State was last night. And obviously, you're not going to get the Boilermakers to shoot 4 of 18 from downtown like they did against Iowa State. But I wonder if there's a little bit of a hangover effect here. I think Minnesota can hang around. I thought that was an impressive win over the Gophers. Now that was at the barn, obviously. Sorry, over the Hoosiers. But I think 20 and a half's a little. I think this lands like 17. I wonder if first half is probably the best play. So I'm looking at the dog here. Maybe split up my unit first half and game. I think Minnesota hangs around in this. I think there's a little bit of a hangover effect for Purdue here after that disappointing, really just second half disappointing.
Yeah, I want no part of this one. Purdue was defeated in that second half. They let a 4-point deficit snowball all the way up to 27. And we talked so much about the championship DNA. This team had 3 guys that started in the national championship 2 years ago. They are winners, unequivocally so. They are also the team last year that finished tied for 6th in the Big Ten Conference and lost 6 different games by double digits. Like that, letting losses snowball and linger has been an issue for this team in the post Zach Edey era. Will it go from one game to a next? I don't know. One thing I do know is this: Minnesota has Cade Tyson, who is a 6'7" wing scorer. That you watch what Milan Momcilovic did, the Iowa State NBA ready wing. Cade Tyson is not that, but he's the same size, and he's scoring 21 points a game right now. You look at who was trying to guard Momcilovic from Purdue; it's a bunch of 6'3" and under small guards. This roster is lacking an elite wing athlete defender for big, small forwards that can put the orange thing in the 10-foot thing. I want no part of this because I have a lot of respect for Purdue, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if this is closer than you think. Let's throw it back to Troy for some notes. You have any trends on this game that we should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, the spread of 20 and a half, I think is right on the money. I think if it was in the teens, people would be hammering Purdue. Anything more, then you really start to look back at and get the kind of tunnel vision from the weekend. Right now, the betting public, at least the early money, is not thinking that Purdue can cover 20 and a half. 87% of the money's on Minnesota, and Minnesota is kind of similar to their football team. Very good at home. On the road's a different story. Now, we just saw Purdue lose at home. I don't think that carries over. But 74% of the tickets are on the Boilermakers to cover, even though the money is on the Gophers right now. Interesting one here. 98% of the money and 95% of the tickets are on the over. It's a low over at 143 and a half, but both these teams play glacially slow paces. Tempos, they rank in the 350s out of 380 teams. Conversely, Purdue is not great at forcing turnovers. They don't do it at a high clip, and Minnesota is not a good 3-point shooting team. So, those are some metrics in terms of how are we going to get to hit an over? You have to have more possessions. Well, they're not. These teams don't really force a lot of possessions, and they play slow. And then, to Doug's point, if you're looking at 10 points over the spread, where are you going to get that? So, I'm not necessarily on either side of the spread, but I would have to be on the under here. I'm also a pessimistic under better. I do think in general, Purdue wipes off the stench of that just horrific 20-minute performance in the second half against Iowa State, albeit a very, very good Iowa State team, one of the best teams in the country. I do think they win. I think it's big. I'm not sure if it's by 20.5, but I do think this game is played below the, in and around or below the 143.5.
I'm thinking more about something Doug said here as we talk through this. Minnesota first half might catch my attention. I want to go through some of Purdue's starts to games this year just very quickly before we move on. Now, against Iowa State, it was their best portion of the game, but they were only up 2 points 10 minutes into that game before it snowballed. Against Rutgers, there was a very slow start with like 6 turnovers in the first 4 minutes in Piscataway before they blew them out. Against Eastern Illinois, only up 4 points 10 minutes into that game before they won by 47. Against Texas Tech, it was a rock fight, down 1 to Memphis, only up 4 against Akron. They've been slow to start games is the point. It's kind of just been a feeling out process. And if they are going to blow you out, they turn it on in the final 20 minutes of games or even the final 5 minutes of the first half. If you're looking to back Minnesota, I'd feel more confident backing them first half than full game here, but I think that might be a good angle as we learn more about who this Purdue team is. 2 more basketball games we want to get to here. Let's go next to Wisconsin and Nebraska. This is a very interesting game for Big Ten basketball fans here. Nebraska undefeated. Really one of the bigger surprises in the entire sport this year, a fun team to watch. It's a prove-it game for them at home against a Wisconsin team that came into the year with top 25 expectations that just has fallen flat in their biggest opportunity games. I would call this a big opportunity game here. Total's high here, 158.5. Doug, we know that Nebraska defense is going to make you shoot from outside. That's the whole scheme, and Wisconsin's got shooters to do it. So what do you make of this matchup?
Just looking back through the history of college basketball in these situations, you're going to be better off betting Nebraska than you are Wisconsin over time, right? Like the big brand name on the road, the home team, short spread, like usually the home team guts it out with energy and just effort, desperation, that kind of stuff. I'm not worried that the Huskers are undefeated. I still think they got a chip on their shoulder, axe to grind. They're going to play this like a home underdog anyway. Wisconsin obviously got a rude awakening when they went on the road to BYU. And then, like their schedule's played out fine. I think Nebraska, they could easily have one loss with the K-State game. And they've had some nice showings, beat down on Oklahoma. So you're right. This Huskers team is a nice surprise. I don't think it's going to be fat and happy Nebraska wake-up call, so to speak. I think they're going to want this game badly. So I'll take Nebraska here. If Wisconsin shoots the lights out, they shoot the lights out. But typically, you're going to get the extra balls, all that stuff, kind of like we saw Minnesota open the season against IU. These are the games where you should really look to the home team with these short spreads. And like Michigan State, is a different example, but we just saw Iowa go to Breslin Center and get their first loss. I think Nebraska, Whiskey will be ready, but I think Nebraska, you more often than not, you're going to cover back in Nebraska in this spot.
I totally agree with the situational scout here. And because you're so right about it, it's a stay away from me. I love this Nebraska team. I think they're great. Rank Mast is one of the more underappreciated players in the country, and Price Sanford is everything we wished his brother would have become at Iowa. They're nasty, and they're going to get the nation's attention as the season continues to roll on. I would not be surprised if this becomes a prove-it statement win for Nebraska, where we finally accept that they are top 20 in the country good. However, the problem for me is if you were designing an offense to be perfectly comfortable against the Nebraska defense, it would be Wisconsin's. They are 11th in three-point volume. The issue for Wisconsin this year is they haven't made their threes. And when I look at the personnel on this team, they're good shooters who should make their threes. Like, if anything, they are due for some positive shooting regression right now. I think Nick Boyd especially is shooting 32% on the year. He's a 40% shooter in my eyes. Nolan Winters, 4 for 23 from 3. He's a good shooter. And this is a defense, Nebraska. Their scheme is to swarm the post, throw 3 different guys at you, and just scramble. And if you beat us from outside, great. I do think at a certain point this season, there will be a game where shots just go in for Wisconsin. They probably deserve for that to be now. Matchup wise, I think that should be what happens here. But like I said, I have too much respect for Nebraska. And to your point, Doug, the spot here to actually bet it, I'm going to stay away and just enjoy watching it. Let's go back to Troy. What do you got, Doug?
What do you make of Ken Palm having this game by 9?
I see 1 on Ken Palm right now.
Okay, my bad. I read that as 89-80, so 79-80. My bad. You're right.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's been a weird one. And maybe Troy can give us some insight because I believe, if I'm right, if I've been watching this, the lines moved. I think Wisconsin was a 2-point favorite at one point on the road, and now it's Nebraska. So, Troy, what do you have on this?
Yeah, it was. And, 77% of the money is on Wisconsin to cover, 68% of the tickets on Nebraska. It's slight on the money line, 59% of the money and 69% of the tickets on Nebraska. Just early gut looking at this, I was like, I think I'd go Wisconsin. 1.5 point underdogs when I saw it. But when you look at some of the underlying data and metrics, this leans towards there's more reasons supported by the stats that suggest that this is a game that Nebraska should win due to their 3-point shooting. But I think there's a slight concern, and that is at the free throw line. If this game is close, Nebraska allows their opponents to shoot like 75% from the free throw line, which is well above the college average. And Wisconsin's one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. They rank 11th on KenPom. Now, so if it's a close game late, Wisconsin at the line is that's where you can get points back, and that's where spreads go to die is the last 2 minutes of a close game. The light concern is that Nebraska doesn't allow its opponents to get to the charity stripe all that often. So if I'm Wisconsin, I'm trying to force the issue. You have the size, you have a little, you are good on the boards. You have to be physical. If you're going on the road, you have to be extra physical. And in Lincoln, Nebraska ball is a passionate, loud fan base. That is not this is not like a football team with a football program with a basketball team. It has really come alive in the last half decade or so. So if you want to win on the road, you have to be physicals. Force some of their bigs, especially Rink Mast, who is, if you can eliminate him from perching outside on the 3-point line, you have a chance to do it. So I think there are routes here for Wisconsin, yet still, I think Nebraska is the more efficient team. I honestly trust Hoiberg a little bit more in this spot than I do a guard for Wisconsin. But the money is right now on Nebraska, and I think that's probably the direction I would lean in. I'm not sure where this is in score. It's 155.5. And right now, 69% of the money, 58% of the tickets on the over. Wisconsin's 7-2 to the over. Nebraska's 4-5. So I'm a little surprised that it's not stronger. Typically, you just get overs, get hammered, and especially Wisconsin's been an overs team this year. But I think this is Nebraska's game, though I do think it is going to be close. But I think there's more routes for them to squeak out a home victory than Wisconsin.
I will say I would have blindly bet the Cornhuskers at plus money. If they're a home underdog in this, I have too much respect for them. I would just take it. But as a slight home favorite, I think that's the right line. And for me, I could see both outcomes coming true. So I'm going to stay away. One last game here. Go ahead.
Let's hope Nebraska wins so we can bet against them at Illinois this weekend.
Amen to that. Please.
That's the spot you want to hammer against them.
It's 100% true. All right, one more fun one here. This is a Thursday night game, so we're going to give you some projections here, but it's Iowa and Iowa State. The Cy Hawk here, Ben McCollum's first entry into this annual rivalry. Iowa State looking very much like a national championship contender after doing what nobody can do, going into Mackey Arena and blowing out the preseason #1 team. The projection here is Iowa State minus 12.5. I could see this line being within 2 points either way, to be honest. I don't know how much respect the books have for the Cyclones. They should have a lot right now, but Iowa's an interesting matchup with how slow Ben McCollum's offense is here. Totals at 144.5. Doug, what are your thoughts?
Not sure here. This is a little tricky. Obviously, the Clones off a big win, but this is the big rivalry game. And if I'm not mistaken, Iowa State's won every game by at least 16 points, which is just crazy. So they're not afraid to cover a big number in this situation. Iowa obviously got wrecked at the Breslin Center, but they bounced back, had a convincing win against Maryland. I think they can hang around, but for a while, I just think the final score is going to be a little bit higher than this spread. It's one of those, in football we see a lot because there's the units of scoring and everything. It's like, oh, they were only covering like 3.5 minutes of the game. I think it's going to be one of those, but the most important is they're going to be covering when it's doubles, triple zeros on the clock. So I think Iowa State gets the cover, but I don't think it's a blowout from the start. I think it's one of those 9-point games that they just stretch it out to 15 last time out, and then they win by like 19. I think it's going to be one of those type games.
I firmly believe Iowa State is as good as they seem.
Yeah.
I think it's a top 2 or 3 team in the country, absolutely a national championship contender. Probably, we'll talk about this later in the year, probably the perfect team schematically to challenge Michigan in a lot of ways. But spot-wise, you mentioned it, Doug. They've had a week to sit and hear about how great they are after the perfect performance that Iowa State basketball has ever had. Yes, it's a rivalry game. Yes, they're at home. Ben McCollum, I think, is going to have something to say in this rivalry going forward. He's a great coach. The Curt Cignetti comparisons in terms of his rise through the hierarchy of college coaching are very real. I mean, anywhere this guy goes, he wins. He gets people's attention. And I think that road game against Michigan State is scaring people because they lost by 19 and got blitzed. And I get it. It was not competitive. But there really was a different challenge against Michigan State for a team that's so point guard star dependent with Bennett Sturts and wants to slow the game down. Dealing with Jeremy Fears and his antics and the Michigan State transition attack is just a different challenge than Iowa State, a team that can slow it down. Taman Lipsey's a great point guard, but he's also hurt right now, and he was stellar against Braden Smith, but he still wasn't as involved as normal. If this line is 12.5, maybe up to 13 where KenPom has it, I'm going to have a hard time not betting the underdog here. I think they can limit possessions. Bennett Sturts is a playmaker that can keep them in a game. And just out of respect for what Ben McCollum is building, I truly think he's going to make a statement in his first rendition of this rivalry game. Not get the win. Certainly, Iowa State's too good. But it's a lot of points for me in a low possession game. I'll side with the underdog there. Back to Troy one more time. Probably hard to have some trends or notes on this one without bets being formally placed here. But what else can you add for Iowa State for us?
Yeah, to Doug's point, it's all Iowa State's won all but one game by 16 points. There was a neutral court win over St. John's, who before Purdue was their best win. They beat up a not great Creighton team, a not great Syracuse team, but the Purdue game really changed everything, I think, in terms of the perception. They are as good as advertised, if not better. They have two of the best players in the country, and Joshua Jefferson and Tamin Lipsey. Lipsey now healthy is a big part. I wonder if Iowa is going to be able to keep up. They're a very good three-point shooting team. They don't get a lot of possessions. So on the road, can you hit your three-pointers and maximize your possessions? I think that's the question this game is going to boil down to is, can Iowa get more possessions and maximize possessions? And the metrics, they are good, an efficient defensive team in terms of forcing turnovers, not necessarily blocks. I think size, although Iowa does have the size, I don't know if that plays out in talent. Their most high usage big man is a 6'11" freshman who doesn't score a lot. And I think senior Josh Jefferson is going to eat him alive. They do have some different bodies to throw at him. I'm very intrigued by what this number is going to be, because if it is like 14.5 or something really high, I would probably go Iowa. But because if it is, a rivalry game, it's tight. These two teams play back and forth a lot. If it's around 11.5, I'd probably lean Cyclones. I think this game is going to end up somewhere between 10 and 14 points. This is one of my favorite rivalry games, and especially in college basketball when you have so many: Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Xavier, Syracuse, Georgetown. The list goes on and on. This is a game I love when it's played right before Christmas. It's usually played on a Friday night, and I do love that because I'm typically at like a holiday party and I get to zone out and watch this game played off in the cornfields while everyone else is gabbing about. This is one of my favorite games. The environment is always great, but I do think Iowa State, for me, is the play, because I just think they're better in terms of the talent, how they execute. and the matchup specifically, I think they have the advantages in a lot of the different positions.
All right, there you have it. Thank you, Troy, as always. Good show today, boys. We covered a lot. We appreciate all of our listeners for hanging with us through 40 minutes of this show. Let's wrap with our best bets. Doug, what do you like this week?
Oh, it's going to be tough across the board. I would say Nebraska at home. I think this is going to be a really big game for them. So I'll roll with Nebraska minus the 2. Obviously, it was better when they were the home dog, but I think they eke this out and get it done.
All right, I think I'm going to go against the majority here and then take that Thursday game. I'm going to take the underdog Hawkeyes to cover the projected spread at 12.5. I think they limit possessions. Bennett Sturtz takes advantage of a not 100% Taman Lipsey matchup and makes things a little interesting in their first rendition of the rivalry. Thank you very much to our audience. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Friday again here on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. Reminder, this show is part of College Sports Rush, where you can also get Sports Bettor's Paradise with Jimmy Ott every single week. Take advantage of those college football promotions that we told you about at the beginning of the show before it is too late. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again on Friday.